Hi BookTube, welcome to Jack's Screencorn. I am Jack, and I did film this video earlier, but it was right before dinner, so it kind of got interrupted. It was a decent video and I got through it, but I decided to go ahead and refilm that video. And I'm actually having an off day off. I should say day off. I always forget. Day off video where I talk about what I'm gonna read tomorrow, because I has worked all this weekend because I'm actually asked off for a whole week to go out of town to finally see my sister, because I don't get to go there. I don't get to go see her that often and see my nephews because, you know, my job and everything, I can't just ask off all the time. So I decided to offer myself to work last week. This past today and yesterday. But I'm working on Tuesday and Wednesday, but I think that I was scheduled to work those days. So let's talk about I actually finished the Stephen King book for my Stephen King project. And that was, although it was a book I started last year, I believe, but I had gotten it from the library, and I enjoyed it, and I'm glad I finished it, but at the time I wasn't super eager, but I did want to continue with it. I just wasn't, I didn't desperately, it wasn't the Stephen King book I desperately wanted. So that's why it took me so long to get back to it, but that is Revival, which is more, it's not like It, or Salem's Lot, or The Stand. It's more of a story about a smaller group of people. And you have our main character, Jamie Morton, and of course Cinnamon. And when he's a little boy, this new minister, young up-and-coming minister, with his wife and little boy, comes to their town to preach the word of God. And he also talks about he combines his spiritual beliefs with his passion for lightning and electricity, and that kind of electrical power. And unfortunately, this minister, Charles Jacobs, experiences this tragic loss where his wife and son die in a car accident, and that really rattles and shatters his faith, because of course when you're grieving, when something like that happens, I think a lot of people would ask God, why would you let this happen to me? Why would you take these people away from me? Because you're probably not ready for that. And I can see where it would shatter your faith. And Jamie, who was immediately taken like everybody everybody else in the town, his faith is shaken too. And basically most of the book is about him growing up. He becomes a rock star, part of a rock and roll band, but he gets into drugs, heroin specifically, and he crosses paths with Charles Jacobs. And the first time, he's a carny man who does portraits using electricity, and he ends up healing Jamie of his drug addiction. And then Jamie crosses paths with him again. And throughout the whole book, he's seeing Charles Jacobs doing all these amazing miracles and healing people, and he's not sure if he believes it. And it's basically about a book of faith, about the questioning of faith in God, and if there is a God, and the afterlife, what happens when you die. And about this man becoming so obsessed and so angry with God that he even uses his former career as a preacher, as a minister, in what's the word? Not provokes, it's a P word. I can't remember, but he takes it to his advantage and uses it to trick people. And it's just a very emotional, heartbreaking story. It's not my favorite King book, but it was still good. I think it was engaging. Although I can understand why some people would be a little bored with it, because most of the book is about Jamie growing up from when he was a kid, when he was 6 years old, to when he gets to his 50s. And Charles Jacobs isn't really in the book that much. I mean, he still plays a key role in our main character's life, but he's not, we don't get to know the character that well. He goes from, as one reviewer said, he goes from one extreme to another extreme. Through, when we interact with the character. And I also agree with this person's review that I would have wanted to know more about this character. But Stephen King does know how to write a good story. He's a great writer. But I can see why he's not everybody's kind of writer, because he, especially with the fact that he's very vulgar with his writing, he loves the F word, and it's more, I feel like at times it's more contemporary mixed with horror. Now, I have very mixed feelings about the ending of this book. It was horrifying if you think about it. It was definitely a scary ending. And I don't know if I should love it because it's a scary ending, so it's what he does best. But then I also have conflicting feelings because of what I believe personally when it comes to, God and religion and all that stuff. And it was kind of also a sad ending too. But I think it's an interesting book and worth checking out. I mean, it's not the greatest King book ever, but I definitely think you should try it out. Get it from the library if you're not sure. I don't know if I'll say more about this book, but I will mention this book during my wrap up because this month I'm going to actually do wrap ups. But I'm so pleased myself that I can actually say I finished the Stephen King book for my Stephen King project. So that's kind of an update on my Stephen King project. Is I read Revival. I'm still reading The Stand. In fact, before I started filming, I was waiting. My parents are going to take the dogs for a walk. So as soon as you say the word walk, they get really excited. And they were barking and everything. So I was waiting for them. And I decided while I was waiting, I was going to read a little bit of The Stand. Which really was like just a page. So not much happened. It's just that our Abigail, the woman who's the healer, she's like the good guy in the story. She's telling the group of people that have shown about her house that God spoke to her, and at first she tried to ignore it, but then she realized that she couldn't ignore God, and she has been chosen to protect these people. So not much. But and then before I get to any more fantasy, I'm also reading Rules of Civility. I want to get this done before I leave for Virginia, and tomorrow is the only day I'll really be able to read a lot of the book, because I'm working Tuesday, and although I won't have to go until 3, which is both the good and bad thing on Tuesday, because that means I don't get home until 8, and I don't like going home. I would rather go into work early, have to get up early to go into work, than go in late so I can sleep in and then come home like super late, where I don't have much time before I have to go to bed again. Because I'm not going to stay up until 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning just to get my time for my free time. So yeah, I will be. I guess I will have some. I'll have some time on Tuesday at least. But this was a book that it was kind of indirect. Another indirect recommendation from a book Olive from a book Olive. Is one of these things where the way she talked about it got me interested in the book. So I got it at Gibbons bookstore. It's basically a story set in the 1930s. This is the same. I think this is the same author who wrote Gentleman of Moscow. And our main character is Katie Content, and she and her friend Evie, they set their sights on this guy Tinker Gray, who's rich and handsome, good-looking, and charming, and they both like him. But he leans more towards being interested in Katie, and Katie seems to connect more. And of course, Evie would not have that. She is very jealous. And then, ironically, there's a car accident when Tinker is driving them, and it severely wounds Eve, and so he feels obligated to take care of her, and then end up deciding to date. And Katie just goes about her life. And of course, there's more to it than that, but that's as far as I've read so far. And we've kind of seen her with her job and everything. And she almost got promoted. She got a promotion, but then I think she just quit. She just quit that job, and I think she wants to do better with her life. Wants this different, more fabulous life. And she went through, like, she bought some new clothes, dyed her hair, went to this fancy rich restaurant. And I'm trying to determine who this is on the cover. At first I thought it was Eve and Tinker, but it could be, since Katie's the main character, this could represent Katie. It's a beautiful cover. I know a lot of people well, I'm kind of curious what Steve from Steve Donahue would think of this cover, because I know he personally does not like these kind of covers. I think he said he thinks it's kind of lazy to, just put a photographic image for a cover. But anyway, it's good so far. I'm enjoying it. It kind of reminds, as the blurb, one of the blurbs on here indicates, it kind of reminds me of the writing style of F. Scott Fitzgerald a little bit. And it's very interesting, the quote that the author puts, instead of quoting dialogue, he puts, like, he has the little line, I don't know what that would be called, and then in the dialogue instead of quotes. So I wonder why they did. I guess it was a writing style choice. I'm not sure, but it was very interesting. I wonder if a Gentleman in Moscow was like that. But anyway, it's very fast paced. The chapters aren't really long. I really appreciate. I'm like obsessed with not long, chapter length. That's why I always mention in my reviews. But I like books in the 30s and the 20s. I'm like a big fan of that time period, like the early 20th century, and also the 1900s, so right before the 20s too. So that's one of the non-fantasy books I'm reading. So it is still, I'm participating in Fantasy-a-thon and Tome Topple, so I'm going to have to bring some tomes with me when I go to see my sister. And I might not bring a bunch of, I'll still bring some fantasy books, but it might not all be fantasy. But I just finished this one, Nevernight by Jay Kristoff, and I like everybody else, I love this book, it's so awesome. Basically, it's about this young girl, Mia Corvair, and her father gets tried for treason against the government. He's announced as a heretic, and she is forced to watch her father die, forced to watch him get murdered. And then her mom and little brother, baby brother, are put in prison, and her mom and when she finally is able to, and when she sees her mom again, her mom's crazy, and her mom says her brother is gone and dead. And although she doesn't say he's dead, she just says he's gone. Actually, I think she does say he's dead. I don't know. But so I don't remember. But after seeing what happened to her parents and her brother, Mia decides to train to become an assassin so that she can avenge their deaths. So, along with the help of her shadow cat, Mr. Kindly, who basically has the ability to swallow her fear, and her master, Mercurio, I don't know if I'm saying that right, she gets to finally go, at age 16, she goes to the Red Church, which is a school for assassins. And I was recently reminded that people compare it. It's kind of like Harry Potter, but instead of just learning magic, you're learning how to kill people. It kind of does like at least the boarding school vibe. It does have that, although it's a lot more brutal and has some sex in it. Which I really absolutely love. I love not the sex, but the brutality of it all, because they're trained to be assassins. And I like how Mia is so morally conflicted. Like, she wants to be a cold-blooded killer and everything, but at the same time, you can tell she does care about people. And she feels for others, which doesn't help when you try to become an assassin. Or so the people who run the school believe. And I love Mia as the main character. She's awesome. She's bloodthirsty and badass and so cool. And I like that she's not, and of course she's not perfect, which I like. I like that she makes mistakes. She's hot-headed. But it's just such an intriguing story and so fun. And I don't know when I'll be reading God's Grave, but I do have it. But I'm gonna read it soon, probably like right before the third book, the third and final book comes out, Dark Dawn. Because and I don't know if I'm gonna wait to get the paperback or not, because I'm not as bothered by it if like not all my books in a series are in paperback. Like if some of them are paperback or only one or two of them are paperback and the rest of them are hardback, or vice versa. In fact, my copy of the Magicians trilogy, the last one, is hardback because I grab what I can when I'm ready to get it. Like I got the third book in in hardback, and then I asked for the first two books. And of course, it's not, hardbacks are more expensive here in the US, so I kinda to, when asking for the book, I made sure to ask for the paperback of the first two books. Because, the hardback, I got it from the used bookstore, so it was like $5 or $4 to get it. So it wasn't that expensive. But anyway, I'm loving this book. I like the story. I can't wait to see what happens next. And it's so good and so intense, and I personally think it's worth checking, and I definitely think it's worth checking out. But so that's my first fantasy, and the challenge was to read a book that you started but hadn't finished yet. Not necessarily a permanent DNF, like you're never going to come back to it, but kind of a DNF. Like where it's been a while since you read it. Like you stop reading it for a while, and then you decide to pick it up again, and you plan on picking it up again. Well, I met the challenge and finished this book, because I started this last year, I believe. And you could say that I could kind of count this book, because it's kind of the same thing. You could argue that it has some fantastical elements in it. Like, it could be considered magical realism, it could be considered the supernatural, it could be considered magical realism, or science fiction. So I could kind of count it, because it does have some of those elements. But either way, so now I have another book I can say that I finished. So I have been reading Lies of Locke Lamora, which is about a thief, this famous thief, Locke Lamora, and it's getting a little bit of competition that could prove deadly, even though most of his competition he ends up wipes the floor with them. He has a new competition that he has to contend with. And I think the setting is very Italy inspired. I'm not 100% sure, but it feels very like Italy. Unfortunately, because I'm reading this right now during my 15-minute breaks at work, because, well, these books this size are the ones that are easiest to bring with me to work, because I don't use a locker. I only get 15 minutes. So there's no point in bringing a big tome with me, or bringing a big book, like a book this size, with me to work. And I barely get this book read. That's why it's taking me so long, and I haven't gotten very far in it. As you can see, like, where am I at? I'm in the middle of Chapter 3, Imaginary Men. But this also has like sections. Like I'm finally on like in this individual chapter. See it 5. So yep. And unfortunately, I have no choice but to break my whole rule of not reading two. Only read like I try to stop at even chapters, but or even sections. But I mean, I only get 15 minutes, and I can't. I'm working, so I can't exactly be like, wait, let me finish reading this page or whatever. I can't do that at work. And so I'm gonna read this. I probably need to read this tomorrow, and then I'm probably gonna bring this one with me to go see my sister. And I still don't know what other books I'm gonna bring. I mean, like, I'm thinking about bringing The Shining with me, but I have this desire to read Needful Things, preferably because it was either that or The Stand, and I was excited to read both, but then, like, now that I've been reading The Stand, I have more of a desire to read Needful Things. And then I also was realizing, oh, I haven't finished the book It yet. I need to finish that one. So maybe I should bring that one instead. But I've really been feeling the urge to read Way of Kings. Like, I was trying to get the Mistborn trilogy read and get to Way of Kings, but then there's his 2 standalones, Elantris and Warbreaker. Although I think one of them was originally meant to be a series or a trilogy, and I think Warbreaker was meant to have a sequel at least. And then there's some classics that I want to read as well that I need to continue with, like Bleak House, Count of Monte Cristo, Middlemarch. American Gods is another one I need to continue. And then there's Leviathan Wakes, but then I was thinking with that one, it's like, but that's a trade paperback book. It's a big book, so it's kind of a heavy book, even though it's not a hardback book. So I was like, maybe I should make a rule that I bring only, like, if I'm, like, limit myself to most of my books being mass market paperback, or at least smaller. But then I need to read that one, and I don't want to bring, it's, like, so many thoughts I'm thinking about on reasons to bring certain books with me, or not to bring certain books with me. I can't decide. And that's the problem, is when I'm on a vacation, it's like I'm thinking about, I think it makes it easier for me to neglect other books because, and not feel guilty that I'm not reading those, but I've left those books behind because my shelf is right here. Like, I can always come back. But when I'm on a trip, I'm not bringing my whole library with me. I'm only bringing a quarter of my books. So I'm thinking, okay, do I need to bring books that I can continue, do I read books that should I just focus on the books that I've had for the longest and bring those? And, there's just so many questions going through my head, it's hard to narrow it down for which books. And that's why a lot of times I wait till the last one. I try not to, but sometimes but maybe it's better for me to wait until the night we're packing to get ready to leave the next morning before I decide officially what books I'm going to bring. But anyway, so I'm curious if you guys have that problem. Like, when you go on vacation, do you have a hard time deciding what books you want to bring with you on the vacation? Do you, like, want to bring, like, a lot of books even though you probably shouldn't because it would be too much? Or, like, you're not really going to have as much downtime to read because you're going to be so busy doing other things or spending time with your family or friends. I would love to know, so feel free to share in the comments below. And if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and click subscribe if you have not already. And always, I hope you're enjoying your reading, and I will talk to y'all later. Bye!